for joining me. I don't actually think I've managed to get the link underneath this, so I'm really sorry about that. I was going to give you a link to our GoFundMe page, so hopefully, fingers crossed, I can do that shortly. If not, Marie, if you're watching, if you could possibly put that link below. If not, I'll put it on afterwards. But we're here today to support the Rainbow Hospice, which is a fantastic, fantastic cause. Now, you can do this one of numerous ways. We do have a GoFundMe page, which if you can go to that, there will be a link somewhere around. There will be a link somewhere, and donate whatever you can. That would be amazing. The other way, which I found out, I think it was yesterday, is that they are doing a bit of a partnership with popgear.com. So popgear.com is a licensed t-shirt company, so they have got the most amazing t-shirts. There's rainbows all over them, and it says it's cool to be kind, and I think they're about £12.99 for an adult size. That was the one that I paid for. Hopefully that will be here soon, and I know Marie, who is running this entire event, is going to get one of those as well. So that is your two ways that you can help to support Rainbow Hospice through this festival. That's donating through the GoFundMe page, which there will be a link at some point. I managed to mess that bit up, so I apologise. Or also you can go to popgear.com, and it's literally on the first page that you see. As soon as the page comes up, you'll see those t-shirts, so get yourself a couple of those. They are gorgeous. Now, thank you for joining me. My name is Lara De Leuw, and I'm a gemologist. I am also a crystal healer, and I've been interested in gemstones for a very, 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 very long time. So my journey with crystals started off when I went on, I can't really say it's a holiday, it's a day trip with my parents to Castleton in Derbyshire, and we went to the Blue John Cavern, and from that moment on I fell in love with caves, because that's a normal thing to fall in love with, really dark holes in the middle of the ground. For some reason I like them, and also gemstones and fossils as well. So that was my first encounter. Going over the years, I was then fascinated with the metaphysical side, the crystal healing side, what gemstones meant in that term. And that kind of randomly steered me to where I went after that, which was going into TV presenting. I'm trained as an actor by trade originally, and just happened to slip into TV presenting through the gemstone side, and ended up doing a qualification with GEMA, which is the GIA, which is the Gemological Institute of America. So through them, I'm an accredited jewellery professional. And then I continued my studies. I decided to be one of the only presenters in the company who wanted to go further. And I did a foundation diploma in gemology, and then went on to do the full qualification. And now I'm a member of the FGA. Still, even though I've gone down kind of the scientific route, I'm still fascinated with gemstones and the metaphysical properties, especially when there's a crossover between the two, because it's quite interesting to see the bits of crystals that people kind of intuitively know that science has not yet explained, and also the kind of side of crystals where there is a bit of explanation actually in the scientific terms, such as the vibrations. We've kind of always known crystals have a vibration, but it's only sort of moving through technologies and using them in things like watches that we go, no, they must do. They actually do. So with a quartz, it has a regular vibration that's so regular it's as accurate as you could possibly get to counting seconds. So it's a fascinating thing. Now, I was originally asked to do a bit of a talk about the properties of crystals, which, considering how many there are, and considering the various different uses that they can be used for and all the different properties, we would be here forever. This would last for a very long time, and I've got you for about 30 minutes if you're willing to stick with me. 30 to 45, depending on how much I talk, because I have a tendency of doing that. So I decided it would be probably more beneficial for you, and for those who might never have actually encountered gemstones before, to learn how to work with them. So there's a couple of simple processes that you would go through when you want to work with a gemstone. First of all is choosing the gemstone. So that's the first thing we're going to go through. The next is cleansing your gemstone, which is a really important thing to do. If you think about the process a gemstone has gone through, it's been ripped out of its natural environment, and it has then gone through processes, whether that's cobbing, whether that's faceting, whether that's just been thrown in a truck and transported elsewhere. And that can be, I mean, that would be traumatic for anybody, wouldn't it? If you were taken from your home and stuck in the back of a lorry and shipped off to goodness knows where to a new group of people who are then willing to pay whatever the price is. Bit traumatic. So a stone can pick up negative vibrations as well as positive vibrations and can actually hold on to that negativity. So cleansing a stone is always really important. Attuning your gemstone is the next step as well. So for me, that is getting to know your gemstone, being friends with your gemstone. So you have a vibration, you have an energy you give out. I mean, you've been in environments where people are really miserable and they're negative, and it kind of saps it from you, doesn't it? It saps the happiness from you and the joy from you. I mean, we've heard the term psychic vampires. And then you've got other people who are really bubbly and lively, and you get a buzz from them, and you just get a nice feeling. So it's the same kind of thing with gemstones. The gemstone needs to acclimatize to your vibrations, and you need to acclimatize to its vibrations for you to work in harmony together. So attuning is the final one. So those are the processes that I'm going to go through with you, and there's going to be a little bit of a meditation towards the end. So if you saw the little clip that I did the beginning of the week on Tuesday, I think it was, I did say if you do have a gemstone that you want to bring with you, that's great. Bring it along, the more the merrier. I've got two with me today. So I've got this, which is a beautiful slice of geode. So amethyst tends to form in two different formations. You've got the geode formation and you've got the pectolite formation. So one basically forms in cracks and grooves in the rock itself, and the other one basically creates sort of gas bubble, and it's a hollow, and then your crystals form quite tranquilly within that. And it does have a variation on the colour and the kind of inclusions that you get within the amethyst. So this is geoformed, and it's very beautiful. Love this one. And this one's a high vibrational stone because it's a quartz. We've already discussed quartz. Yeah, and I love it. So I've got this one. And I've also got this one, which is tiger's eye. Now, tiger's eye has a fantastic optical quality to it. It's something known as chatoyancy, which basically means cat's eye effect. So when the light, if this, you probably can't see, you can almost make out, can't you? There, can you see how the light goes across it? There should be a line that goes across it. This is in the rough form, so you're not going to get it the same way as you would if it was actually faceted. The best way to see a tiger's eye really is in a domed shape, because the light can go over it really nicely. So these little lines, this is actually a really interesting stone, because once upon a time this used to be asbestos. Believe it or not. It's not anymore. Don't panic. It's not asbestos anymore. But that's what those lines were. So asbestos is quite a fibrous stone itself. And that's what forms the lines. And that's when the light goes over it. You get that fantastic look. Not asbestos anymore. Now this is a fantastic tiger's eye. So I've got those two with me. Right. So what do we mean when we talk about crystal healing? We talk about crystals. So the term crystal is referring to something that has a crystalline structure. And if you look at gemstones, there are 7 different crystal structures. I won't go into that in this session because, again, it'll take too long and I'll go off on a tangent. But when we talk about crystal healing, when we talk about crystals in that term, it's very loose. We're not just referring to a stone that has a crystalline structure. We're talking about polycrystalline gemstones, crystalline gemstones, and amorphous stones as well, and rocks and minerals. So when we're talking about crystal healing, it's a very loose term to cover any kind of rock or stone or anything like that that you could possibly use. So for an example, well, this is a great example of a crystalline stone. There we are, quartz, fabulous example of that. A polycrystalline stone, jadeite would be a great one. So polycrystalline just means there are many, 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 many tiny, 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 tiny little crystals, all compact together, all pressed together in a really tight formation, and it's quite an irrational formation, so it makes a very strong stone. Those stones quite often are porous as well, and I'll go on to that because that's a really interesting fact to remember when you're working with stones. Whether it's porous, whether it's not porous, whether it's been treated, all has an impact. And then we're talking about amorphous stones as well. So that's something that does not have a crystalline structure at all. So we're talking about natural glasses. For example, obsidian is a natural glass. It's formed volcanically. Moldavites, which is a natural glass which was formed when a meteorite hit the planet and superheated and then supercooled. And we're also talking about things like amber, which is an organic. And that was obviously resin from a tree many millions of years ago. So we talk about crystals and their properties, but actually what we mean is we're talking about polycrystalline crystals, and also amorphous stones as well. So it kind of encompasses everything. So how do you choose? How do you choose? There are so many to choose from, and there's more and more being discovered every single day. I mean, if you think about it, mining doesn't stop. There's mines going on all over the world. There's people happening and stumbling upon gemstones that they've never seen before. There might be a new alluvial deposit that they've found something in. The thing is, that's down to you. It's all down to you. The choosing of a gemstone is very personal, because you're forming a relationship with the stone. Now, whether that's because you're working with it, or whether that's because you personally want a stone to help you because something's going on in your life at the time, whether that's psychological, whether that's physical, whether that's emotional, whatever it is. And there are a couple of ways that a lot of crystal healers tend to use to choose a stone. One of those is you go into a crystal shop and you hover your hand over the stones. And because there are vibrations from the crystals, it's like walking into a room with a bank full of computers. I can't be in an office for a prolonged period of time because you can feel the electric buzz. You can feel that kind of energy, and it kind of gets a little bit. Stones are the same. They give off vibrations. So you run your hands along them, and when you either might feel warm, might feel cold, might feel tingly, you might just get this all of a sudden, this knowing that this is the stone for you. You might actually walk into the store and visually you just look at the stone and you know that's the one for you. So it's kind of more of an intuitive thing about choosing stones. So those are the two. It would be visually, you look at it and you know, or you hover your hand over it and you can feel the vibrations and you'll get drawn. You'll get drawn to it. It's a little bit like a magnet. The one that I like to use, which is really simple, and that's just put out to the universe that you want a stone and just leave it. Just leave it. It might turn up in the form of you see a picture in a magazine. It might turn up that your best friend's just seen this stone, thought of you, bought it, and here's a gift. It might be that you are walking down the street and you go into a shop you don't normally go into, and there it is. But it happens to just appear in your life somehow. I quite like that one because it kind of, you have a little bit of an excitement of what could it be, where's it going to be, and also if you start looking at the pattern when you do this, you'll find that certain crystals and certain stones come to you and find you at certain points in your life, and it's really, really weird. So for a prolonged period of time, hematite was finding me, and then for a prolonged period of time, it was labradorite. And I'm not going to go into all the details. This can be something that can be discussed at a later point. But it's quite interesting when you start looking at the time periods in your life when these gemstones became more prevalent, and also what's going on physically, mentally, emotionally, and health-wise as well. So that's choosing your stone. Really simple, really easy. The next one is cleansing your stone. So like we've said, think about it in the regard of, you don't know where the stone's been. I mean, you wouldn't pick up a donut that dropped off on the floor in the street and start eating it, would you? No, you don't know where it's been. You don't know who's touched it. You don't know if a dog's weed on it. You just don't know. So cleansing is a really important thing to do. This gemstone potentially could have had the most sublime, beautiful environment that it grew up in. It formed really tranquilly. We're going back to the amethyst here. So pectolite formed gemstones are going to have more of an aggressive, I say upbringing, formation than if it was a geode, which is a lot more tranquil. It tends to be percolated minerals coming through, the sort of rain coming through, and then quite happily just dripping in and forming really peacefully. It could have had the most amazing life, and it gets to you and it's got no negativeness at all ever. But it could have been ripped out of its really happy, comfortable environment, and it could have been thrown into the back of a lorry, and it could have been carelessly handled, and it could have been hacked at and chipped at, and it could have gone through all these different processes, which would leave a mark on anybody. And it's not necessarily saying these are entities unto themselves and they have feelings. I kind of think that, but well, yeah. But it's going on the idea of that's a harsh set of, if you're going on vibration and energy transfers, that's a lot of negative energy transferred to the stone itself. You're getting it, you're using it straight away without cleansing it. That negative energy is there for you to pick up on, for you to work with. So it's not good. So cleansing your stone is always advisable. There are a couple of stones that in theory don't need cleansing. Amethyst is one of them, citrine is another. I can't remember the others off the top of my head, but there are a handful that supposedly don't need cleansing. Doesn't mean they shouldn't be cleansed. Don't get lazy with your stones. Just because it doesn't have to be cleansed doesn't mean it shouldn't be cleansed. It's still nice to cleanse it and get your energies in there to make the stone happy and nice vibrations. So I would cleanse amethyst, I would cleanse citrine. Now, the way cleansing normally works, and this is again quite interesting when you look at the metaphysical and the scientific, because it's normally advised that you cleanse your stones with the four elements: air, fire, water, and earth. That's great until you start looking at what those things can do. I know it's not necessarily good for all your stones. So if you have a huge wealth of knowledge about gemstones and you know exactly what the makeup is, or if it's porous or not, then great, do whichever one you think is right for you. I'm going to go over some of them. So we're going to look at earth cleansing. So I quite like this one. This one can work for any stone, and that's literally you bury it. You bury it and you leave it overnight, 24 hours, you leave it. And the earth then cleanses the stone. My advice on this one would be don't necessarily bury it in an open garden or in an open field, because you might not find it again. The earth has a funny way of thinking you're giving it a gift, and you might not remember where you put that stone. So put it in a pot with soil is probably the easiest way to do it. Bury it, leave it overnight, and then your stone is cleansed. You will need to probably clean it off a little bit afterwards. That one is great. It doesn't really harm any of the stones in any way. Then you've got air. Another one, brilliant. Leave it out overnight, and I recommend overnight rather than in the daytime. You can leave it out in the daytime, it's entirely up to you. But I say leave it out overnight. The moon has a really tranquil, really peaceful energy to it. So it's nice to infuse your crystal with that energy. The sun's a lot more aggressive. On top of that, the sun can and will change the colour of certain gemstones. So for example, if you wanted to leave this beauty out in the sunlight for too long, it might have started off as a really beautiful dark purple. It's going to get lighter because the sun's going to bleach that colour out of it. And although it's not really going to change any benefits of the stone, it's just not going to look as pretty. So nighttime rather than daytime is definitely advised. The other thing as well with a quartz, it amplifies light. It has a really great way of focusing light as well. So if you've ever seen the sort of pinpointing magnifying glass and things set on fire, yeah, to kind of keep quartz out of the sunlight. Don't put quartz in your window. It's not a good idea, especially on a sunny day. So we've done earth, we've done air. Water would have been my go-to point if it hadn't have been for me doing the gemology qualification, because water's really, again, it's a really good purifying energy. It's great. You think about baptisms, you think about sort of cleansing, and if you need to do a detox, you take lots of water, don't you? But not all stones like water. Some of them really love it, some of them don't. If it's a porous stone, you could end up damaging your stone. If it's something like an opal, a hydrophane opal particularly, it will take on the water and it will absorb the water, and all of the pretty lights and colours that you get in your stone will vanish. It will come back once the stone's dried out, but if you have a panic about the fact it's gone, it's because it's absorbed the water. And also if it's dyed, you don't necessarily know if your stone has been dyed. That could sap the dyes out of it. So water, be careful. Some crystals are water soluble. That's the other thing as well. So some crystals are water soluble and you risk damaging them. And also if they have a high metal content, the last thing you really want to be doing is running that underwater and sort of polluting the water stream itself. So if you are going to use water, make sure you know what your gemstone can deal with, whether it's been treated, whether it's porous, whether it is hydrophane. Normally opals, just avoid running opals underwater. Or if it's, I did say treated, didn't I? Porous, or if it's got high metals, or if it's soluble. You don't want to do that. If you are going to work with water, you can use tap water. It's better to use purified water if you can, or if you can get it into a stream, make sure you're holding onto it tight. Don't go into the stream, just at the edge. That's a nice way of doing it. And then finally, fire. Yeah, I have done this before. And normally the way you would do this is, again, it's quite tranquil, but you would light smudge or incense. So smudge is normally sage based. You light incense and you waft the smoke over it. That's great. We're going to go back to the opals now. That's great. But one of the treatment processes for opals is to smoke it, which means it takes on, some stones will take on that smoke and it will alter it. I was actually going to show you a stone that I had, which I did do. I did do a little bit too much of the heat cleansing and burnt my stone. My stone actually burnt. There is now a permanent mark on the stone itself through one of the cracks that it had. So be very, very careful when you're working with fire. It is a great purifier, it's a great cleanser, but not all stones take to it very well. Again, I would avoid porous stones. I would avoid opals if you're going to work with it. Something like quartz should be fine. But if you think about it, heat treatment is one of the most common treatments in gemstones. It does alter the colour of stones. So if I were to heat this too much, this amethyst too much, it would turn into a citrine. Don't want a citrine, I like my amethyst. So you've got to be careful and conscious about what you're doing. So if you are going to cleanse your stone, my recommendations would be leaving it out overnight or burying it, making sure it's in a container where it's not going to wander off. Those are my two go-tos. Then we come to attuning your crystal. So attuning is basically getting to know you. It's like speed dating for gemstones and people. You can do it as quickly as you like. Now, there are two main methods that I know of, and then there's a method that I use, which is, I don't know anybody else who does it. They probably do, but I've not come across it. So there is the looking at the stone and just starting to think about the stone itself and think about the vibrations, the energies, and it's that link. So you're just looking at it and there's a really nice link between the two of you, and you do that for a prolonged period of time. Then there's the feeling. So it's holding it and just feeling the vibrations. So you become accustomed to the vibrations of the stone, and in turn it should become accustomed to your vibrations as well. What I do is kind of a little bit of a meditation. So I've chosen to go with this one rather than this one because I've already felt quite a strong connection to this today. So what I want you to do, I'm going to talk through a little bit of a guided meditation now. I suppose it's a meditation. Not quite a meditation. A guided something. So I'd like you to take, if you have your stone in your hand, just take it in your hand, and I want you to sit comfortably. That can be cross-legged, that can be on the sofa. Have your feet on the floor. It's always good to be grounded and be comfortable. And I would hold your crystal either in your lap, so it's comfortable. It depends on how heavy the crystal is, so it's comfortable. Or, ooh, I feel that already. Or towards your navel if you feel better. Now mine's quite a heavy one, so I'm just going to put it in my lap. And first of all, I just want you to close your eyes and just take a moment. Sorry about the noise in the background. I think my neighbours are doing their garden. So take a moment. Now I want you to breathe in deeply. Now if you can breathe through your nose, I don't do that very well, so in through your nose and out through your mouth you can. If not, then in through your mouth and out again, and take slow, deep breaths. And every time you breathe in, I want you to just feel the air going into your mouth or nose. And I want you to feel how cold it is. And I want you to feel it going down into your lungs. And how warm it feels when it comes back out. So just focus on your breathing for a moment. Then I want you to draw your attention to your head. How does your head feel right now? Is it tingling? You've got lots of things going on in your head? Is your mind blank? How does it feel? Now I want you to bring your attention down to your lungs. And how does it feel every time you breathe? Does it make you want to breathe deeper? And now I want you to draw your attention to your feet. How do your feet feel? Can you feel the ground beneath them? Or does it feel like you're floating? And then I want you to draw your attention to the weight that's in your hand. Is it heavy? Is it light? Does it feel comforting? Or does it make you feel nervous? Now if you move your fingers along the surface of the stone, is it rough? Is it smooth? Is it cold? Or is it warm? Are there sharp bits? Are there any indentations? I just want you to take a little time to explore the stone with your fingers and your hands. And then just rest it back in the palm of your hand again. And continue to breathe, being conscious both of your breathing and of the weight of the stone in your hand and how the stone feels. Because you're both in the same space right now. And there are lots of elements to the stone which can be found everywhere around you, and sometimes also within your own body. Think of the minerals that you take on a daily basis, whether that's in food, water, or whether it's through supplements. And just focus on what you can see in your mind's eye as well. And just sit for a moment with that thought. And when you're ready, start becoming more aware of your surroundings. And when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into the room. And I'm only going to do that really short one because it kind of gives you a bit of a taster of what you could do to attune your stone and to get to know how to work the vibrations of your stone. It's nice to do it for a bit more of a prolonged period of time. So if you've got 5 or 10 minutes to spare, 15 if it's possible, do that. And it's a really nice way to connect with your stone. And once you've cleansed it, once you've attuned it, once you've chosen it, you can start working with it. So thank you very much, because that now brings me to the end of my little chapter with you. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure being with you. I do hope that you continue your journey with crystals and you enjoy it as much as I do. And I hope that you are able to support the Rainbow Hospice as well, whether that's through buying the t-shirts through popgear.com or whether it's through funding through the GoFundMe page. Whichever way it is, it's very much gratefully received, and you're helping to donate to a fantastic, amazing cause. So thank you for joining me, and hopefully I will see you very soon. This is where I now try and figure out how to turn this off. And I have no idea. Okay, I found it. Thank you for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you soon.